The stars looked different this far from Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiant, watching the view screen display a sector of space that no human had ever seen before. His ship was the newest vessel in the Earth fleet, equipped with experimental technology that military scientists promised would change everything. Jake hoped they were right. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," Lieutenant Lisa Grant called out from her tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly across the console, pulling up data streams. "Multiple energy signatures, very powerful. They don't match anything in our database." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The readings showed at least 6 large objects moving in formation, each one generating more power than an entire human battle group. "Distance? Closing fast. They'll be in visual range in 3 minutes," Lisa replied. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. Commander Paul Henderson looked up from the navigation console. "Should we go to battle stations?" Jake considered the question. They were on an exploration mission, far beyond the normal patrol routes. Starting a fight with unknown aliens seemed like a bad idea, but ignoring a potential threat seemed worse. "Yellow alert. Power up the shields but keep weapons offline. Let's not look aggressive." Chief Engineer Karen Walsh's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. "Captain, those shield generators are still new. If we need full power, I can't promise they'll hold for more than a few minutes." "Noted," Jake said. "Do your best." The waiting was always the hardest part. Jake watched the countdown timer tick down as the unknown vessels approached. The crew worked quietly, each person focused on their station. These were good people, trained and ready, but they had never faced a real battle. Neither had Jake, despite 15 years in the service. Humanity had found a few alien species, but most were either friendly or too primitive to pose a threat. "Visual contact," Lisa announced. The main view screen changed, showing 6 massive ships that looked like nothing Jake had ever seen. They were sleek and golden, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. Each vessel was at least twice the size of the Defiant, and they moved with perfect coordination. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer reported. "Put it through," Jake ordered. The view screen shifted again, showing an alien face. The being had smooth silver skin, large dark eyes, and features that were almost human but not quite. It wore elaborate robes decorated with the same glowing symbols that covered the ships. When it spoke, the translation software rendered the words in English. "Primitive vessel. You have entered sacred territory belonging to the Kaldreth Empire. I am Archon Velrith, Supreme Commander of the Divine Fleet. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is forbidden by the decree of the eternal gods." Jake exchanged glances with Paul. The alien's tone left no room for discussion, treating them like children who had broken a rule. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Human Systems. We mean no harm. We were unaware this region was claimed. If you'll give us coordinates of your territory, we'll gladly adjust our course." Velrith's expression didn't change. "There is no adjustment. There is only submission. The Kaldreth are the chosen people of the creators, destined to rule all lesser beings. You will surrender your vessel and your crew will serve the divine will. This is your only warning." The channel cut off before Jake could respond. He felt his jaw tighten. In all his years of service, no one had ever spoken to him like that. "Lisa, what are we looking at in terms of firepower?" "Their energy signatures are incredible, Captain. Each of those ships has weapons that could probably vaporize us in seconds. But there's something odd." She pulled up a detailed scan. "Their technology is advanced, but not as advanced as they should be. It's like they're using really old designs just scaled up." "Can we outrun them?" Paul asked. "Maybe our engines are newer. But if they fire while we're turning around, we're dead," Lisa said. Jake made his decision. Running would show weakness, and if these Kaldreth controlled this entire region of space, they would find Earth eventually. Better to see what humanity was dealing with now. "Hail them again." Velrith's face reappeared on the screen, looking annoyed. "You dare to contact us a second time? Your arrogance will be punished." "We're not surrendering," Jake said clearly. "Leave us alone and we'll leave your territory. Attack us and you'll regret it." For a moment, Velrith seemed genuinely surprised. Then his face twisted into something like anger. "Regret? You speak of regret to a god? We have destroyed 1,000 civilizations. We have burned worlds that defied us. You are nothing but insects and you will learn your place." The channel closed. Alarms started blaring across the bridge. They're powering weapons, Lisa shouted. All 6 ships. Energy levels are off the scale. All power to forward shields, Jake ordered. Brace for impact. The view screen showed brilliant beams of golden light erupting from the Kaldrith ships. They crossed the distance between vessels in an instant, slamming into the Defiant's shields with tremendous force. The ship shook and the lights flickered. Shield status, Jake called out. Holding at 78%, Lisa reported, sounding shocked. Captain, those shields are actually working. The quantum matrix is dispersing the energy. Jake felt a surge of hope. The scientists had told him the new shields could handle energy weapons better than anything humanity had built before. Apparently they were right. Return fire. Target the lead ship. Full spread. The Defiant's railguns fired, launching solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The weapons were simple compared to energy beams, but they hit hard. The round slammed into the lead Kaldrith cruiser, punching through its shields and tearing holes in the hull. On the view screen, Jake could see the damage clearly. Atmosphere vented from the wounds in the alien ship, and secondary explosions rippled across its surface. The other Kaldrith vessels stopped firing, as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Did we just hurt a god? Paul said quietly. Lisa was already working on her console. I'm recording everything. Ship configurations, weapon signatures, shield frequencies. If we make it back, this data will be invaluable. The Kaldrith ship started moving again, spreading out to surround the Defiant. Felrith's face appeared on the screen once more, but now his expression showed something Jake recognized. Fear. Impossible, the alien whispered. Our divine weapons cannot fail. You have used forbidden sorcery. Just human engineering, Jake replied. Last chance. Leave us alone. Instead of answering, Velrith screamed an order in his own language. All 6 ships opened fire at once. Get us out of here, Jake ordered. Maximum speed, random evasion pattern. The Defiant spun and accelerated, racing away from the Kaldrith vessels. Enemy fire chased them, some shots connecting with the shields and draining their power. Karen's voice came through the intercom, urgent and strained. Captain, I can't keep the shields up much longer. We need to jump to hyperspace right now. Do it, Jake commanded. The stars stretched and twisted as the Defiant entered hyperspace, leaving the Kaldrith fleet behind. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. They had survived barely, but he knew this was just the beginning. Set course for Earth, he said. And somebody get me everything we know about the Kaldrith Empire. We just started a war. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time in the conference room, going over the data Lisa had collected during their encounter with the Kaldrith. Every scan, every transmission, every second of video got analyzed until his eyes hurt from staring at screens. What he learned worried him more than the battle itself. The Kaldrith Empire was massive. Their territory covered 47 star systems, each one home to multiple planets and billions of beings. Most of those beings weren't Kaldrith. They were conquered species, forced to serve their self-proclaimed divine masters. The empire had existed for 3,000 years, which meant they had been building their power while humanity was still figuring out basic agriculture. They've destroyed entire civilizations, Lieutenant Sam Hughes said during one of their briefings. Sam was the ship's intelligence officer, a quiet man who specialized in analyzing alien cultures. According to the fragments we pulled from their databases, the Kaldrith don't negotiate. They show up, demand surrender, and then either enslave the population or wipe them out. Paul leaned back in his chair, looking tired. How have we never heard of them before? They're far from Earth and they expand slowly, Sam explained. They take their time with each conquest, building temples and spreading their religion before moving to the next target. But here's the thing that bothers me. Their technology is good, but it's not exceptional. They're using the same basic designs they had 1,000 years ago. Lisa nodded in agreement. I noticed that too. Their ships are powerful because they're huge, not because their technology is better than ours. In some ways, we're actually ahead of them. Jake drummed his fingers on the table. Then how did they conquer so many worlds? Psychology, Sam said. They show up with overwhelming force, claim to be gods, and most species just surrender. The few that fight back get crushed by sheer numbers. After 3,000 years, their reputation does most of the work. People hear about the Kaldrith and give up before the first shot is fired. Until now, Paul said, until now. Jake let the words sink in. The Defiant had done something no other species had managed in 3 millennia. They had fought the Caldrith and survived. More than that, they had drawn blood. News like that would spread, and Jake had no idea what the consequences would be. When the Defiant reached Earth orbit, Jake found himself summoned immediately to Fleet Command. Admiral Frank Cooper met him in a secure briefing room deep inside the orbital station. Cooper was an older man, his hair gone gray from decades of service, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "Show me," Cooper said without preamble. Jake played the recordings of the battle. Cooper watched in silence, his expression never changing. When the video ended, he sat back and closed his eyes. 3,000 years, Cooper said quietly. "They've been out there for 3,000 years, and we just wandered into their territory." "Sir, they're not that far from our colony worlds," Jake pointed out. "If they decide Earth is their next target, we need to be ready." Cooper opened his eyes. "Oh, they've already decided. Intelligence intercepted a transmission an hour ago. The Caldrith High Council is sending their divine armada toward our sector. 60 ships, Captain. 60 ships that have never lost a battle." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Defiant could barely handle 6 Caldrith vessels. How were they supposed to fight 60? "We're not going to fight them head-on," Cooper continued. "Fleet Admiral Nina Ross has authorized an emergency construction program. We're building 20 new ships based on the Defiant's design, but that will take months and the Caldrith will be here in weeks. What's the plan, sir?" Cooper stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Earth below. "The plan is you're going back out there. We need intelligence, Captain. We need to know everything about the Caldrith, their fleet movements, their supply lines, their weaknesses. And we need allies." "Allies?" Jake asked. "Those conquered species you mentioned in your report. If even a few of them rebel, it will force the Caldrith to divide their forces. You're going to make contact with resistance movements and give them hope. Show them that the so-called gods can bleed." Jake understood immediately. It was a suicide mission dressed up as a diplomatic assignment. "My crew needs rest, sir. We've been running on fumes." "You've got 48 hours, Cooper replied. "Then you ship out with new orders and enough classified technology to start a revolution. We're also giving you someone new. Admiral Lisa Grant will be staying here to oversee the defense preparations. Your new tactical officer will be Lieutenant Commander Dan Foster." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew it wouldn't matter. The military needed Lisa's expertise more than the Defiant did. "Understood, sir." The next 2 days passed in a blur. Jake spent time with his crew, making sure everyone was ready for what came next. Karen worked with engineers to upgrade the ship's systems, installing new weapons and a cloaking device that was still experimental. Paul coordinated with navigation specialists to plot routes through Caldrith territory that would minimize the chance of detection. When Jake finally met Dan Foster, he was pleasantly surprised. Dan was younger than Lisa, but had combat experience against pirates on the frontier. He was calm under pressure and didn't waste words. "I've read your report on the Caldrith about 50 times, Dan said during their first meeting. "I have some ideas about their tactics if you want to hear them." "I'm listening," Jake replied. "They fight like they think they're invincible. No evasive maneuvers, no tactical flexibility. They just power forward and overwhelm you with firepower. That's a weakness we can exploit." Jake liked him already. The Defiant launched on schedule, slipping away from Earth under cloak and heading back into the darkness. This time, Jake knew exactly where they were going. Sam had identified a mining colony in Caldrith space where a species called the Torvani were forced to extract rare minerals. According to intelligence reports, the Torvani had resisted conquest initially and still maintained underground resistance cells. The journey took 2 weeks. Every day, Jake wondered if they were flying into a trap. The Caldrith had to be looking for them, had to be angry about what happened. But space was big and the Defiant was small and stealthy. They reached the mining colony without incident. It orbited a red dwarf star, a massive asteroid field rich in valuable metals. Dozens of Torvani workers lived in pressurized habitats carved into the larger asteroids, toiling under Caldrith supervision. "I'm detecting a single Caldrith patrol ship in orbit," Dan reported. "Light cruiser, probably here to make sure the workers stay in line. Can we avoid it?" Jake asked. "Easily. But Captain, if we want to make contact with the Resistance, we need to do something to get their attention. Something that proves we're not Caldrith." Jake smiled. "Are you suggesting we pick a fight?" "I'm suggesting we remind everyone that gods can die," Dan replied. Jake thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "Do it. Hit them hard and fast, then get us into the asteroid field before they can respond." The Defiant decloaked and fired in the same instant. Railgun rounds tore through the Caldrith cruiser's shields, crippling its engines and weapons in the first salvo. Before the aliens could even send a distress signal, the Defiant vanished back into cloak and dove into the asteroid field. "Now we wait," Jake said. "If there's a resistance here, they'll come looking for whoever just killed their overseers." He was right. 6 hours later, a small transport ship approached their position, broadcasting a simple message in broken English. "Human ship, we saw what you did. We want to talk." "Please don't shoot us," Jake grinned. "Open a channel. Let's meet our new friends." The Torvani who came aboard the Defiant looked nothing like humans. They were tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces had no nose, just small slits for breathing, and their eyes were large and yellow. But when their leader extended one hand in greeting, Jake recognized the gesture of peace that seemed universal. "I am Kelvin," the Torvani said through a translation device clipped to his chest. "I speak for the resistance on this colony. We have waited 3 generations for someone to challenge the false gods. Are you the ones the whispers speak of? The ones who made the Caldrith bleed?" Jake nodded. "That was us. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We're here to help if you'll trust us." Kelvin's large eyes studied Jake carefully. "Trust is earned through action, not words. But you destroyed a Caldrith ship to reach us. That earns you the chance to prove yourself." Over the next hours, Kelvin explained the reality of life under Caldrith rule. The Torvani had been a peaceful species, focused on art and philosophy. When the Caldrith arrived, they demanded immediate surrender. The Torvani refused, believing they could negotiate. The Caldrith responded by burning their capital city from orbit, killing millions in minutes. After that, the survivors had no choice but to submit. "They took everything from us," Kelvin said, his voice heavy with old pain. "Our freedom, our culture, our hope. They put us in these mines and worked us until we died. They told us we were being punished for our pride, that only through service to the divine could we earn redemption. But you kept fighting," Paul said. "Not fighting, surviving, remembering. We passed down stories of what we once were, teaching our children in secret. We waited for something to change." Kelvin looked at Jake. "Then we heard rumors. A ship that fought the Caldrith and escaped. A species that said no and lived. We didn't believe it at first. It seemed impossible." Karen had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. "How many other species are like you? How many are forced to serve?" "Too many," Kelvin replied. "The Shrell, the Vecton, the Droon. Dozens of species across dozens of worlds. Some have been enslaved so long they've forgotten they were ever free. Others like us remember and wait." Jake saw the opportunity. What if we gave them hope? What if we showed them the Caldrith can be beaten? "They will not believe words," Kelvin said. "They need to see it with their own eyes." Dan had been studying a star map at his console. "Captain, there's a Caldrith temple ship in the next system. It's one of their orbital platforms, used to intimidate the local population and coordinate supply shipments. If we destroyed it, every species in this sector would know within days." "A temple ship?" Jake asked. "How dangerous?" "Extremely," Dan replied. "They're basically flying fortresses. Heavy shields, massive weapons, and always guarded by at least 3 cruisers." Jake looked at Kelvin. "If we attack that temple ship, will your people help spread the word?" "We will do more than that," Kelvin said firmly. "We will rise up. If you can destroy a temple ship, we will sabotage the mines and free ourselves. The Caldrith will learn that we are not broken." It was exactly what Jake needed to hear. "Then we'd better not disappoint you." The Defiant spent 2 days preparing. Kelvin provided detailed intelligence about Caldrith patrol patterns and defensive protocols. Karen worked with Torvani engineers who secretly maintained their technical skills despite Caldrith restrictions. Together, they modified the ship's weapons and enhanced the cloaking system. When they finally entered the target system, Jake felt his nerves settle into the calm focus that came before battle. The temple ship hung in orbit above a green and blue planet, a massive golden structure covered in those glowing symbols the Caldrith loved so much. 3 cruisers patrolled nearby, their weapons ready. "How do you want to play this?" Paul asked. Jake had been thinking about that question for 2 days. "We can't fight them straight up. We need to be smart." He turned to Dan. "What's the temple ship's biggest weakness?" "Power generation," Dan replied immediately. "Those symbols aren't just decoration. They're part of the ship's energy grid. If we can overload the system, the whole structure becomes unstable. Can we do that with our weapons?" Dan nodded slowly. Maybe. We'd need to hit multiple points simultaneously, cause a cascade failure. But we'd have to drop the cloak to fire, and those cruisers will be on us instantly. Then we make sure they're looking somewhere else, Jake said. He opened a channel to engineering. Karen, can you rig one of our shuttles to broadcast a false sensor signature? Make it look like the Defiant. Give me an hour, Karen replied. An hour later, they were ready. The modified shuttle launched from the Defiant, flying toward the temple ship while broadcasting signals that made it appear to be a full-sized warship. The Caldrith took the bait immediately. Alarms sounded across their fleet and all 3 cruisers moved to intercept. They're focused on the shuttle, Dan reported. We've got a clear shot. Fire everything, Jake ordered. The Defiant dropped its cloak and unleashed hell. Railgun rounds, missiles, and energy beams all converged on the temple ship's energy grid. The golden symbols flared bright, then brighter, as the system tried to compensate for the damage. Explosions rippled across the massive structure. The Caldrith cruisers realized their mistake and turned back, but they were too far away. The temple ship's energy grid overloaded exactly as Dan predicted, triggering a chain reaction that tore through the vessel's core. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a second sun burning in the sky before fading to nothing. Temple ship destroyed, Dan confirmed, but those cruisers are closing fast. Get us out of here, Jake said. Maximum speed. The Defiant ran, and this time the Caldrith didn't catch them. As they jumped to hyperspace, Jake thought about what they had just done. They hadn't just destroyed a ship. They had destroyed a symbol. Every species in this sector would know that the Caldrith temples could fall. True to his word, Kelvin and the Torvani resistance launched their uprising. Within days, reports flooded in from across Caldrith space. The mines on 3 different worlds had been sabotaged. Workers were refusing orders. Some were even fighting back with improvised weapons. The Caldrith Empire responded with brutal force, sending punishment fleets to crush the rebellions. But every action they took just created more resistance. Species that had been passive for centuries suddenly remembered how to fight. Jake received a message from Admiral Cooper. Earth's defense fleet was growing faster than expected, with 12 new warships already operational. But the Caldrith Divine Armada was still coming, now commanded by someone called War Apostle Drexen. According to intelligence, Drexen was a fanatic who had spent 800 years serving the Empire and had never lost a battle. He's coming for you personally, Cooper's message said. He sees you as a demon that must be destroyed to restore divine order. Be careful out there. Jake shared the message with his senior staff. Paul looked worried, Dan looked thoughtful, and Karen just shrugged. Let him come, Karen said. We've beaten them before. We'll beat them again. Jake wished he had her confidence. The truth was they had been lucky so far. They had won through surprise and tactics, but eventually their luck would run out. The Caldrith had numbers and experience. Humanity had desperation and innovation. The question was whether that would be enough. Set course for the Shrell homeworld, Jake ordered. If we're going to survive what's coming, we need more allies. And according to Kelvin, the Shrell have been waiting the longest for a chance at freedom. As the Defiant jumped to hyperspace once more, Jake stared at the star map and thought about Drexen. Somewhere out there, an 800-year-old warrior was hunting him. Convinced that killing one human captain would restore the Empire's divine reputation, Jake had no intention of making it easy for him. The Shrell homeworld was dying. Jake could see it from orbit, a planet covered in gray dust where green forests should have been. According to the historical records Kelvin had provided, the Shrell had been the first species to seriously resist Caldrith conquest. They had fought for 10 years before finally surrendering. The Caldrith response had been to strip mine half the planet as punishment, leaving the ecosystem devastated. I'm detecting settlements on the surface, Dan reported. Population centers, but they're small. Maybe a few million Shrell left total. They used to have billions, Sam said quietly. The Caldrith made an example of them. Any species that thought about resisting got told the story of what happened to the Shrell. Jake felt anger building in his chest. The Caldrith didn't just conquer. They destroyed. They took entire civilizations and ground them into dust to feed their myth of divine superiority. Open a channel to the surface. Let them know we're here to help, not hurt. The response came quickly. A Shrell leader named Vera agreed to meet with Jake in person. She sent coordinates for a landing site near one of the larger settlements. Jake took a shuttle down with Paul and Sam, leaving Dan in command of the Defiant. The surface was worse than it looked from orbit. The air was breathable but tasted of chemicals and dust. The sky was a sickly yellow color and nothing grew anywhere Jake could see. The Shrell settlement was built from salvaged materials, a collection of shelters that looked like they might blow away in a strong wind. Vera met them at the landing site. She was shorter than a human, covered in scales that might have been colorful once but were now faded to gray. Her eyes were bright though, intelligent and alert. She studied Jake and his crew for a long moment before speaking. "You are the humans," she said. Her voice was raspy like sand over stone. "The ones who fight the Keldrith." "We are," Jake confirmed. "We're trying to organize resistance across their empire. We need allies." Vera made a sound that might have been laughter. "Allies, we have nothing to give you, human." "Look around. This is what resistance brought us. We fought and the gods destroyed our world. Now we survive in the ruins and we tell our children never to fight again." "They're not gods," Paul said firmly. "They're just aliens with big ships. We've proven they can be hurt." "For now," Vera replied. "But they have been here for 3,000 years. They have crushed every rebellion, won every war. You may win battles, but they will win the war. That is what history teaches." Jake understood her pessimism. The Shrell had lost everything. Why should they believe that this time would be different? He needed to show her something real. "Come with me. I want to show you what happened 2 weeks ago." He played the recording of the temple ship's destruction. Vera watched in silence, her scaled face impossible to read. When the video ended, she was quiet for a long time. "You destroyed a temple ship," she finally said. "That hasn't happened in 800 years. "And it's happening again," Jake said. "All across Keldrith space, species are rising up. The Torvani, the Vecton, others. The Empire is stretched thin trying to respond. This is the moment, Vera. This is when we can actually win." Vera looked at the ruined landscape around them. "And if we lose? If we fight and fail again? There are so few of us left. Another punishment like the last one will end our species forever." Sam spoke up. "Then you're already dead. The Keldrith won't let you recover. They'll keep you here barely surviving as a warning to others. At least if you fight, you have a chance." Vera's bright eyes fixed on Sam. "You speak hard truths, human. Perhaps that is good." She turned back to Jake. "I will speak with the elders. But understand this. We will not fight unless we believe we can win. Show us the Keldrith can truly be beaten, not just hurt. Show us they can fall." It was a challenge, and Jake knew it. Destroying a temple ship wasn't enough. Vera wanted to see the Keldrith actually lose, to see their empire crack. Jake had no idea how to deliver that, but he had to try. The answer came from an unexpected source. Admiral Cooper sent an urgent message through the secure channel. War Apostle Drexen had divided his divine armada, sending hunting parties to track down human ships while he led the main force toward Earth. It was a tactical error born from arrogance and anger. "He's so focused on destroying you personally that he's weakening his own position," Cooper's message explained. "We've identified the location of his supply depot. It's in the Neptune belt, heavily guarded but vulnerable. If you can hit it, you'll cripple his offensive and force him to retreat." Jake called his senior staff together and shared the information. They all understood what it meant. This wasn't about destroying another ship. This was about striking at the heart of the Keldrith offensive and proving they could be beaten strategically, not just tactically. "We can't do this alone," Paul said. "That depot will be guarded by capital ships. We need support. Admiral Grant is sending 2 more warships to meet us," Jake replied. "The UHS Ranger and the UHS Falcon. Between the 3 of us, we might have enough firepower." Dan studied the tactical data. "Might isn't good enough, Captain. We need certainty," Jake agreed. That's when he made a decision that would change everything. "Karen, how much power can you pull from our secondary systems?" "Life support, artificial gravity, everything non-essential." Karen's eyes widened as she understood what he was asking. "Enough to triple our weapon output. But we'd only have maybe 30 minutes before the crew starts having serious problems." 30 minutes might be all we need," Jake said. "Dan, coordinate with the other ships. We hit the depot with everything we have all at once. No holding back, no second chances. We destroy it or we die trying." The plan was insane and everyone knew it, but it was also their best shot at proving the Keldrith could truly be defeated. Jake sent word to Vera, inviting her to witness the battle from a safe distance. If they won, maybe it would convince the Shrell to join the fight. The journey to the Neptune belt took 4 days. The Ranger and Falcon joined them en route, their captains young and eager but experienced enough to know what they were facing. Together, the three ships represented humanity's best hope and newest technology. The Caldrith Depot was exactly where intelligence said it would be, a massive station surrounded by 8 cruisers and countless smaller vessels. It was a fortress designed to supply the Divine Armada for months of campaigning. Destroying it would be a blow the Caldrith couldn't quickly recover from. "All ships report ready," Paul announced. Jake opened the fleet channel. "This is Morrison. Remember, we only get one shot at this. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and don't stop until that depot is gone. For humanity." "For humanity," the other captains echoed. The 3 human warships dropped out of hyperspace directly above the depot. Surprise gave them precious seconds as the Caldrith scrambled to respond. Those seconds were enough. The Defiant's weapons, supercharged by Karen's modifications, tore through the depot's shields like paper. The Ranger and Falcon focused on the defending cruisers, their coordinated fire overwhelming Caldrith defenses. Explosions lit up the darkness as human railguns punched through alien hulls, but the Caldrith were recovering. Return fire began to hammer the human ships, and Jake felt the Defiant shake under the assault. Alarms blared across the bridge. "Shields down to 40%, Dan reported. "Multiple hits to the port side. Keep firing," Jake ordered. "We're not done yet." The depot's main reactor began to destabilize under the sustained assault. Jake could see it on the sensors, the power signatures fluctuating wildly. They were close. So close, that's when Paul screamed a warning. "Caldrith reinforcements incoming. 4 heavy cruisers jumping in right on top of us." Jake's mind raced. They couldn't fight 4 more cruisers. They barely surviving the current battle. But if they ran now, the depot might be repaired. Everything would be for nothing. "Paul, get us between those reinforcements and the depot. We'll buy the Ranger and Falcon time to finish it." "Captain, we can't survive that," Paul said. "I know," Jake replied. "Do it anyway." The Defiant turned and accelerated, putting itself directly in the path of the incoming Caldrith ships. Enemy fire converged on them from all sides. The shields failed completely. Hull breaches erupted across the ship. People died at their stations, doing their duty until the end. Paul was thrown from his console as an explosion ripped through the bridge. Jake pulled him up, but his friend wasn't moving. Wasn't breathing. Paul Henderson, who had served with Jake for 10 years, was gone. "Captain, the depot's reactor is critical." Karen's voice came through, weak but determined. 30 seconds to detonation." "All ships get clear," Jake ordered through tears. "Maximum speed." The Defiant limped away, trailing atmosphere and debris. The Ranger and Falcon were already at safe distance. Behind them, the Caldrith depot exploded with the force of a small star, taking the 8 defending cruisers and 2 of the reinforcements with it. They had won. But the cost had been terrible. Paul was dead. 15 other crew members were dead. The Defiant was barely functional. Jake sat in the captain's chair, staring at Paul's empty station, and felt victory turn to ash in his mouth. Vera's voice came through the communication channel. "Human Captain, we witnessed your battle. We saw you sacrifice to achieve victory. The Shrell will fight beside you. You have earned our trust." Jake wanted to feel triumph, but all he felt was tired. 6 months after the Battle of Neptune Belt, the war had transformed into something nobody could have predicted. The Caldrith Empire, which had ruled unchallenged for 3,000 years, was fracturing. Species across dozens of worlds had risen up, inspired by humanity's victories and armed with technology shared by Earth's engineers. The empire that claimed divine authority was learning that gods could fall. Jake stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Defiant, watching ships from 20 different species move in formation. The Coalition of Free Worlds, as they called themselves, had grown from a desperate alliance to a legitimate military force. Torvani cruisers flew alongside Shrell fighters. Vecton carriers deployed human-designed weapons. Even some Caldrith had defected, disgusted by their leaders' willingness to destroy entire worlds to maintain power. The cost had been terrible. Paul's death still haunted Jake every day, but his sacrifice hadn't been in vain. The destruction of the supply depot had forced War Apostle Drexen to retreat, buying Earth time to build its defense fleet. Now humanity had 40 warships, each one incorporating lessons learned from every battle. "Captain, we're receiving the final authorization codes," Dan said from the tactical station. He had become Jake's right hand over the past months, his steady presence helping to fill the void Paul left behind. Operation Daybreak is approved. We launch in 6 hours, Operation Daybreak. The name sounded peaceful, but what it represented was anything but. The Coalition was going to assault Kaldros Prime, the Kaldrith homeworld, and destroy the central control network that coordinated their empire's military forces. Intelligence gathered by Shrell spies had revealed that every temple ship, every psychic amplifier, every weapon system across Kaldrith space was linked to a massive AI on their capital world. Destroy that and the Empire would be blind and helpless. Karen approached with a data pad, her expression serious. I've run the final diagnostics on the shield network. Every Coalition ship is now synchronized. When we get hit, the damage gets distributed across the entire fleet. We'll all take small hits instead of any single ship taking catastrophic damage. Will it work? Jake asked. In theory, yes. In practice? Karen shrugged. We're about to find out. Sam joined them, looking tired but focused. He had spent months coordinating intelligence from dozens of species, building a complete picture of Kaldrith leadership and military strength. I've been analyzing Drexen's patterns. He's obsessed with you, Captain. He sees your survival as a personal failure. When we attack the homeworld, he'll come after you directly. Let him, Jake said. If keeping Drexen focused on me helps the mission succeed, I'll play bait all day. The fleet assembled at the rendezvous point, a neutral system far from Kaldrith patrols. Jake counted the ships as they arrived. 40 human warships, including his Defiant, 20 Torvani cruisers, 15 Shrell attack wings, smaller contingents from 8 other species. In total, they had 93 combat-capable vessels. Against them, the Kaldrith could field over 200 ships defending their homeworld, including the personal flagship of their emperor. The numbers didn't favor the Coalition, but numbers weren't everything. They had surprise, coordination, and most importantly, they had people fighting for their freedom rather than following orders. Admiral Lisa Grant's face appeared on the view screen, broadcasting from Earth. She had been promoted to overall commander of human forces after proving her tactical genius in 3 separate engagements. This is it, everyone. This is the moment we've been building toward. The Kaldrith have ruled through fear for 3,000 years. Today we show them that fear works both ways. Good luck and come home safe. The channel closed. Jake took one last look around his bridge. Dan at Tactical, Karen monitoring engineering systems, Sam coordinating intelligence updates, new faces at the other stations, replacements for those lost in previous battles. Every one of them knew what they were risking. All ships, this is Morrison, Jake said over the fleet channel. Jump in 3 minutes. Remember the plan. Hit the orbital defenses first, then the ground installations. Special forces teams will infiltrate and plant the charges while we keep the Kaldrith busy. We don't need to destroy their whole fleet. We just need to hold long enough for the mission to succeed. 3 minutes felt like 3 seconds. Then the stars twisted, and they were in the Kaldros system. The Kaldrith homeworld hung in space before them, a beautiful blue and gold planet covered in cities and temples. Hundreds of ships orbited it, arranged in defensive formations that had protected this world since the Empire began. Alarms must have been blaring across every Kaldrith vessel as they detected the Coalition fleet. Incoming transmission, Dan reported. It's Drexen. The War Apostle's face filled the view screen. He looked ancient, his silver skin lined with age, but his eyes burned with fanatic intensity. Morrison, you dare to bring your heresy to the sacred homeworld? This blasphemy ends here. I will personally deliver your corpse to the Emperor as proof that the divine order cannot be challenged. You're not gods, Jake replied calmly. You're just old conquerors who convinced yourselves you were special. Today we're here to prove that to everyone watching. Drexen's face twisted with rage. All ships destroy the heretics. Leave no survivors. The battle began with a fury that made all previous engagements seem like practice. The Kaldrith fleet surged forward, energy weapons blazing. The Coalition fleet met them head-on, Karen's synchronized shield network activating instantly. As designed, the hits got distributed across all 93 ships. Each vessel took damage, but nothing fatal. Jake watched the tactical display as the 2 fleets collided. Human railguns punched through Kaldrith shields. Torvani missiles overwhelmed point defense systems. Shrell fighters swarmed around enemy cruisers like angry insects, targeting vulnerable spots that Sam's intelligence had identified. The Kaldrith were powerful, but they were fighting an enemy that had learned from every battle, that shared information instantly, that didn't care about preserving some ancient tactical doctrine. Special Forces teams away, Dan reported. They're making the descent to the surface. That's when Drexen's flagship, the Sovereign Throne, broke from the main battle line and came directly at the Defiant. It was a massive vessel, 3 times the size of any other ship present, covered in weapons and glowing with barely controlled power. He's really committed to killing you personally, Karen observed. Then let's make him work for it, Jake replied. Dan, evasive pattern 7. Keep us moving. Keep him chasing. The Defiant dodged and weaved through the battlefield, Drexen's flagship pursuing relentlessly. Other Kaldrith ships tried to help, but the coalition forces kept them busy. It became a game of cat and mouse played at relativistic speeds, with weapons fire lighting up the void between them. Meanwhile, Sam was coordinating with the Special Forces teams on the ground. They've reached the central AI facility. Heavy resistance, but they're pushing through. Estimate 15 minutes until the charges are placed. 15 minutes. Jake just had to keep Drexen busy for 15 more minutes. The Sovereign Throne fired a massive energy beam that would have vaporized the Defiant instantly, but the synchronized shields absorbed it, spreading the damage across the fleet. Every coalition ship took a small hit, their shields flickering but holding. That was their best shot, Dan said with a grin. And we're still here. Jake opened a channel to Drexen's ship. Your weapons failed. Your empire is falling. Surrender now and face trial. Keep fighting and die for nothing. I am divine will made manifest, Drexen screamed. I cannot fall. I am eternal. No, Jake said quietly. You're just a soldier who lived too long and believed too much. Sam's voice cut through the tension. Charges placed. Detonation in 30 seconds. All ships prepare to withdraw, Jake ordered. Get clear of the planet, but Drexen wasn't retreating. His ship accelerated toward the Defiant, weapons charging for one final attack. He intended to ram them, to take Jake down even if it meant his own destruction. The distance closed rapidly. 10 kilometers. 5, 2. Captain, we need to move now, Dan shouted. Jake watched Drexen's face on the view screen, saw the madness and desperation there. This was a being who had served an empire for 800 years, who had won hundreds of battles, who had never questioned his divine purpose, and now faced with undeniable defeat, his mind couldn't accept it. Eject the bridge section, Jake ordered. Emergency separation protocol. What? Karen yelled. Captain, that will destroy the ship. Do it, Jake commanded. The Defiant's bridge section separated from the main hull, small thrusters carrying it away from the battle. The rest of the ship, on autopilot, continued forward and collided with the Sovereign Throne. Both vessels exploded in a brilliant flash. On the planet below, the charges detonated. The central AI facility erupted in secondary explosions that rippled across the capital city. Every temple ship in Kaldrith space went dark simultaneously. Weapon systems failed. Communication networks crashed. The entire Empire's military infrastructure collapsed in an instant. Jake watched from the escape pod as Kaldrith ships across the battlefield went silent and dead. Without the central AI coordinating their actions, the individual crews didn't know what to do. Some tried to retreat. Others just drifted, waiting for orders that would never come.